Today we want to talk about more Q&A about shoes, sourcing shoes, selling shoes, making decisions based on different data, different information, so you can make smart sourcing decisions when you're looking at selling shoes on Amazon. And specifically, we're talking about selling new shoes because you can't sell used shoes on Amazon. So let's talk about new shoes. We have had a bunch of different questions in some previous videos, so we kind of want to answer those here. So we'll get started right off the bat. Rebecca, when you are sourcing shoes, what are your parameters for shoes? When you're looking at sizes and variations, what is your thought process?
That's a good question, and that's one that we get a lot. We've gotten a lot on the blog and on videos, and it's kind of a tricky one to answer because really the answer to it depends a lot on each person's particular business model. And sometimes I get real specific questions like, should I buy, you know, this type of shoe versus this type of shoe, or should I buy size 5 and size 12, or should I only buy size 7, 8, and 9 for women? And it's almost like saying, should I only buy hot toys or should I buy the hard to find toys? And you know, the answer is, well, it depends on what your business model is, and you know, how much capital you have, and how much competition there is, and how much access you have to whichever kind of inventory. And so I know that's not the answer people are looking for. When they ask, like, what are my parameters, they really want to know numbers. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I can tell you that I tend to buy shoes that are more in the common sizes, and then people will say, well, what are the common sizes? And, you know, that's even debatable. But, you know, I tend to stick for, like, women's shoes. I'll stick to, you know, sizes 6 through 9. 7, 8, 9 being, you know, the ones that I prefer, but I'll buy size 6 and I'll buy size 10. And if nobody's selling size 11 and nobody's selling size 5, I might consider buying those.
Right.
I don't buy those as often, and it just depends on how much capital I have to spend that day on whether or not I'll do that. And so everybody really has to make their own choices about what those parameters are. Some people love to sell the really large or really small shoes. You know, some people really love to sell size 7 in men's and size 15 in men's. You know, I don't, but other people have made a lot of money doing it, so I'm not going to argue with the fact that it could work, but that's what I do. And as far as number of variations, again, everybody has a different idea. I try to stick to like 5 or 6 color variations, and if as far as sizes,
like max, right?
Max, yeah. 5 or 6 color variations or lower. If there's 9, 10, 15, 20 different colors of a shoe, I'm not going to buy that because, and the reason is that the sales rank, you have no idea which color of that shoe is actually selling. I mean, there's ways you can figure some of that out with reading reviews and things like that, but there's no guarantees. And same with sizes. As far as variations go, if the only sizes available are size 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, you've got a lot better chance of knowing what the sales rank actually means than if it starts at 4.5 and goes up to 12.5 and has all the half sizes and a narrow and a wide version of every single half size. That's just getting into crazy numbers of variations that there's just so little way to know.
Yeah, and like think, you know, go back to your multiplication tables. I mean, you know, you've got, if you have like 4 or 5 different, you know, variations, and you've got 10 different sizes, well, that's 40 to 50 different possibilities that was the one sale that helped the sales rank improve, and so you don't really know. And so if you've got, you know, 20 variations and 20 different sizes with, you know, wide and regular and all that, it just makes the chance of you actually finding the right shoe, right size, right color, variation, whatever, it makes it a lot harder. And so to increase our chances, we limit sourcing the shoes based, you know, limit the number of sizes, variations, things like that. That's cool. Okay, so one question we seem to get all the time is, how many shoes do you sell per month? How many? Give me an exact number. Come on.
I don't know. I mean, anybody who sells any type of inventory can go into their inventory and look and, you know, go into their inventory reports, whether it's in Seller Central or in whatever third-party software like Inventory Lab or whatever you might be using. And you can see, oh, I sold this number of units of shoes last month and I sold this number the month before. And again, I know people are not looking, they're wanting a specific answer, but...
Yeah, they're wanting a specific answer of how many we sell per month so they can get an idea of how many they need to sell per month.
It's the same. I mean, it's similar to a question that Stephen gets asked all the time, like, how much inventory do I need to make a full-time living? What kind of inventory do you have? I mean, there's so many different factors that go into that. I'm not going to tell you the number of shoes I sell per month, but I will tell you that we make a full-time living off of our FBA sales. We have a family of 6, and we have a 4-bedroom house. And shoes made up half of our revenue last month, and that's pretty typical over the past few months. Now, a year ago, it was not like that. It's taken us several months beyond our first initial experiment, our first foray into selling shoes, to get really ramped up and to have enough shoes in inventory that we're continually selling some of these longer tail items and getting higher selling price on these items so that we can have larger sales revenue now. But I just don't think it's helpful to tell people, you know, oh, we sold, you know, this number of units per shoes of shoes this month, and so, and you can too. I mean,
right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. You know,
there's other people who will tell you that, and you know, yeah, there's other people who'll tell you that, and if you find that information helpful, you can ask them and kind of get an idea about that.
Yep. Yep. So let's kind of shift gears and think, still thinking shoes, but maybe things that are connected with shoes. Is it a good idea to focus on shoe-related things to make good money on Amazon? I'm talking like, you know, special shoelaces, shoe shining kits, boxes that protect shoes, things like that.
Storage units.
Right. What is that a good idea to focus on?
Yeah, that was the question we got after the last video, and that's an excellent question. It's actually something I personally haven't ever looked into, trying to source those types of items, but I love the idea of doing that. I don't know what category those would be in, if that's actually in the shoe category, or if that would go into more like, some of those might be in the house and kitchen category, home and kitchen. Some of those might be under health and beauty even, I don't know. But if you're ungated in health and beauty, everybody's ungated in home and kitchen. But if you're ungated in health and beauty and want to look into some of those things, I would think that shoe accessories might be a niche that you could get into and find some really good wholesale accounts to supply those types of things to people who are buying them off of Amazon. I think it's an excellent idea.
That's good. Yeah, I think so too. So, and if anybody does experiment with that, get back to us. Let us know how it goes, and we can report back to others about your successes or the things that you've learned. And so the last question we're going to talk about today, so when you're sourcing shoes, there's so many shoes out there, so do you look at the really hot, popular stuff, the brand new shoes that had just been released? Do you try to source those or not?
That's another really good question, and I don't try to buy shoes. When I find a shoe and I scan it I do online arbitrage, so I don't really actually scan it. But when I'm scanning a list or whatever and I pull up a shoe, I always will look at the Keepa graph. I have the Keepa Chrome extension so that when I pull up a shoe on Amazon, one of the first things I look at is that Keepa graph underneath. That if you're using the Keepa Chrome extension, it puts the Keepa graph right there, prominent under the product picture and everything. I'll look at the Keepa graph and kind of get an idea of how long has the shoe been out, and has Amazon been in stock? Are they in stock currently? And if a shoe has only been out for a very short amount of time, I'm going to pass on it just because I don't know if this price is going to hold. I don't know if, Amazon's going to come in stock next week because there's no history of whether they've ever been in stock or not. Now, if a shoe has a Keepa graph and it's over a year and there's no history of Amazon coming in stock, I'm going to be more willing to take a risk on buying it, thinking, oh yeah, Amazon's never been in stock. They could go in stock on it, but
it's always possible. Historically,
they haven't. And so a lot of people will compete with Amazon on shoes. It's possible to do. I prefer not to. That's not my strategy. And so if Amazon has the potential to be in stock again in the near future on it, I tend to pass. And so, you know, there might be some real money to be made in selling shoes that have just been released in the last month or so, but that's just not the strategy that I use.
Right. You're taking, I think you're taking more of a chance, more of a risk by sourcing shoes that are brand new, or really popular or whatever, that just have been released, because there's less information for you to make a quality sourcing decision. So it's riskier. So, but of course, with some of the higher risks, there might be high rewards. But if you're wanting to do this long term and have some consistency and some stability, we suggest sourcing shoes that fit into more comfortable ranges when it comes to variations and sizes, and even how long it's been around. For today, if you want more information about selling shoes, sourcing shoes, anything like that, we have a series on the blog. You go to fulltimefba.com/shoe series. It's so hard to say that, so I have to say it slowly. /shoe series, and there's some more information for you to find out about sourcing shoes on Amazon for good profits. That's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. You know what? If you scroll down, you can give us a thumbs up. You can ask a question, leave us a comment, and as always, you can subscribe to our blog, fulltimefba.com. That's where all the fun stuff is, the free information where you can learn how to turn part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA. Hope you have a great day. God bless. Bye.